Hi folks, this is your host I2I35 here, and this is going to be a video response to all the degenerated folks who have commented on some of my videos saying that homeschooling is for weak-minded fools and stuff like that. I'm going to be talking to you about some prominent people who were homeschooled. There was John Adams, U.S. President. He learned to read at home and was then taught in the kitchen by a neighbor with a handful of children. He matriculated in Harvard College at age 15. There was Alexander the Great and Susan B. Anthony, who was a leading pro-life advocate of women's suffrage. Her father homeschooled her. There was Clara Barton, a pioneering nurse during the Civil War, founder of the American Red Cross. Barton was homeschooled and at age 15 started to teach school. She later attended the Liberal Institute in Clinton, New York. Alexander Graham Bell, inventor of the telephone. His deaf mother taught him to read and write, and he returned the favor by inventing the telephone to try to help her and other deaf persons to communicate. There was Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who was a Christian, a major Christian who spoke against Hitler, and he was martyred for doing so. William Jennings Bryan, Secretary of State under President Woodrow Wilson, and before that was the founder of the modern Democratic Party. He was also the leading critic of the supposed theory of evolutionism, who prevailed in the Scopes trial and was perhaps the greatest orator in American history. He was homeschooled until age 10, as his mother taught him to stand on table to recite his lessons. There was Andrew Carnegie, the brilliant American businessman and philanthropist of the late 1800s. His father was a poor weaver, and Andrew dropped out of elementary school and only 5 years of formal schooling. George Washington Carver, an amazing creation scientist who made a lot of medicines and a lot of flavors and peanut butter. There was Winston Churchill, the British statesman who was Prime Minister of England during World War II. There was Charles Dickens, a prolific English author who could not afford school. His passions for reading were awakened by his mother, who homeschooled him with a curriculum that included English and Latin. Thomas Edison, an inventor of like 1,000 inventions, and his mother pulled him out of the public school at age 7, for many good reasons, after just a few months, and began homeschooling him by reading from the Bible. There is Benjamin Franklin, a leading founding father and prolific inventor and statesman, only attended part-time school from ages 8 to 10. There was Matthew Henry, a nonconformist Presbyterian minister in England, and under state persecution, Henry was homeschooled by his father and for a time by a tutor before moving on to a Christian school in 1680. There was Zach Taylor. There was Fred Hoyle, a great British physicist of the 20th century, and received a homespun education in which he sneaked away from school for 60% of the time between ages 5 and 9. There was Joan of Arc, one of the great military leaders of France who basically helped defeat England and free France. John the Apostle, one of the disciples who wrote one of the books of the Bible. He's considered by many to be the greatest work written ever. He also wrote several other books in the New Testament. His parents placed him, most likely as a child, under the homeschooling-like teaching of Jesus, rather than a more traditional school setting. John became the first to develop Christian faith, and his work has since spread Christianity to billions of people. C.S. Lewis, the author of the Chronicles of Narnia and other famous works, was taught at home by his mother and a governess until age 10, and later sent to be taught by a tutor to prepare him for Oxford. Abraham Lincoln was homeschooled, and his most favorite books was reading the Bible, Pilgrim's Progress, and Life of Washington. There was even James Monroe, a highly successful U.S. president, homeschooled until age 11. Isaac Newton, who established the law of gravity. Christopher Paolini, who wrote The Inheritance Cycle. You know, Aragon, Eldest, and Brissinger, which I'm a big fan of. Blaise Pascal, and one of the greatest mathematicians and philosophers of all time, was homeschooled by his father. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, he was educated by private tutors at home through age 14, then entered Groton, an elite private school in Massachusetts in 1896. Theodore Roosevelt, Mark Twain, Leonardo da Vinci, Frank Lloyd Wright, a lot of people have been incredibly successful in society because they homeschooled. And I homeschooled as well. Also, Ronald Reagan and Glenn Beck were also homeschooled. And people try to say about all that, you're being stupid or whatever. Basically, public schools have not really become places of education anymore. They've become places of indoctrination where people can be easily duped by communism, evolutionism, humanism, man-centered ideas that are just always corrupt. Homeschooling is safe. And that's all I have to say to those who like to blast me and saying like homeschool is for ninnies or stupid people. I just gave you a big example of how homeschooling is basically very essential to preserve someone's human standards and human principles, and to keep themselves unspotted and unindoctrinated and unfilthy from the whole world, which is basically going corrupt. And I plan to even homeschool my children if I have any. So that's all I had to say. Peace out, keep thinking, Jesus bless you, and TTFN, ta-ta for now.